Some evenings promise champagne toasts and deliver cultural earthquakes. On a rain-polished spring night in Washington, the Kennedy Center's grand colonnades glimmered like a set from an old MGM epic. Inside, senators, studio chiefs, and streaming-era influencers gathered for what the program called Art and Democracy, a Conversation. What they got instead was a generational collision that turned two Hollywood icons into unexpected pupils and a 25-year-old press secretary into the night's unlikely moral North Star. Stay to the final frame, because this story isn't just about age or power or politics. It's about how one poised voice can flip a narrative the internet thought it had already written. Limo doors hissed open beneath a gauze of mist. Morgan Freeman, 86, wearing a charcoal Nehru jacket that matched his serene gravitas, greeted camera flashes with an almost priestly nod. Robert De Niro, 81, arrived moments later in a classic tux, jaw clenched as if every pap light were an interrogation lamp from a Scorsese set. Interviewers lobbed softballs, favorite modern playwright, latest binge-worthy docu-series. But both men steered answers toward politics, previewing the edge they would soon brandish. 5 cars back, Caroline Leavitt stepped onto the carpet virtually unnoticed, shielded by a single staffer holding a compact umbrella. Reporters recognized her too late for a soundbite. Still, she paused at the hall's entrance, taking a photo of the marble facade, a habit she'd kept since her journalism school days, logging event atmospheres for later reflection. Little did she know that by midnight, her own image would be the one ricocheting across every imaginable screen. In recent years, Freeman had leveraged his storyteller reputation into a de facto moral authority, narrating climate crisis PSAs, producing voter access documentaries, guest lecturing at Howard on the responsibility of narrative. Friends whispered he was weighing an ambassadorial role should a future progressive administration invite him, where Freeman's activism sounded like a sermon. De Niro's resembled a Bronx street debate at 2 a.m., award shows, rallies, late-night interviews. No venue was too formal for a signature unscripted broadside against authoritarian posturing, as he called it. That raw authenticity both enamored and alienated audiences, but always commanded attention. Leavitt's resume read like accelerated fiction. Local New Hampshire reporter at 19, deputy press officer for a Senate campaign at 21, White House assistant press secretary by 23, the podium itself at 25. Critics caricatured her as the intern with national security clearance, while allies praised Gen Z composure under Gen X scrutiny. Yet behind the profile pieces lay late-night policy brief cramming sessions and a devotion to her grandfather's maxim, service isn't comfort. Inside the Opera House, a Steinway trio played Gershwin as VIPs found seats. Moderator Dr. Avery Sandoval, a Pulitzer-winning culture critic, outlined the agenda. Arts funding formulas, free speech frontiers, the business of empathy. Nothing in those polite talking points foreshadowed the rhetorical detonation about to occur. 10 minutes in, Sandoval asked how entertainment can shape policy imagination. De Niro pounced. Imagination is great, but reality is millions losing health care. He swiveled toward Leavitt. And reality is we get daily spin from someone who wasn't old enough to rent a car 5 years ago. A ripple of gasps, some applause. Freeman added, tone velvet but message granite. Perspective matures with seasons, Ms. Leavitt. You've seen, what, 1 season of Power? Phones lifted like flowers to sunlight. Sandoval attempted a segue back to funding graphs. De Niro waved it off. Twitter's trending algorithms pricked up their digital ears. The house lights caught the faint tremor of her eyelashes, but her voice never flickered. In the 8-second pause that birthed 1,000 reaction gifs, her mind flashed through formative scenes. Early morning diner shifts back home, scribbling op-ed drafts on receipt paper. The White House Blue Room ceiling at 2 a.m., while rewriting crisis talking points after Kabul fell. Her grandfather's trembling hand pinning his bronze star into a velvet shadow box meant for her someday office. When she finally leaned into the mic, the hush became cathedral-like. Leavitt spoke first to gratitude, acknowledging the actor's cultural imprint. then pivoted with surgical precision. You value authenticity. So do I. Authenticity is being 24 in a briefing room filled with people who doubt you and showing up anyway. She painted vignettes of student loan Zoom calls and wildfire evacuation briefings, tying her generational reality to policy urgency. Without raising her voice, she reframed the question from, "Does youth equal ignorance?" to, "Can generational diversity repair echo chambers?" De Niro's eyebrow twitched. That tick audiences knew from, "You talking to me?" But this time, curiosity replaced menace. Freeman refused to yield. "Charisma aside," he intoned, "conscience can't read talking points." He recounted his civil rights-era memories of politicians cloaked in eloquence yet empty of empathy. "When words mask harm, the messenger becomes an accomplice," she answered with story, not spin. Normandy beaches, her grandfather's platoon photo, the medal in her purse. "Service isn't comfort," she repeated, voice wavering only on the final syllable. "I stand at that podium because democracy survives on communication, even flawed, contested communication." She pledged to resign the day policies crossed her moral red line, listing examples, family separations, press crackdowns, that drew murmurs of approval from unexpected corners of the hall. De Niro leaned back, exhaled, and asked softly, "What's the toughest briefing question you've faced?" Levitt recalled telling a Gold Star mother why troop redeployments were necessary, her voice cracking for the first time. The room's emotional thermostat spiked. In aisle 7, an aide for a senator who planned to tweet a snarky comment lowered his phone, eyes glassy. Freeman nodded, and something in his posture relaxed, as if he'd finally heard the note he'd been searching for. Applause thundered, first scattered, then unanimous. Sandoval wisely ceded the floor to the moment. Attendees turned phones from stage to one another, recording raw reactions, tears, stunned silence, whispered, "Did that just happen?" White House digital strategist texted fire emoji to the comms director. An LA talent agent DM'd, "Get Levitt a book deal yesterday." Campus debate clubs from Stanford to Spelman clipped the exchange before CNN even cut to commercial. By dawn, #generational grace and #listen across divides trended across 31 countries. TikTok creators stitched Freeman's question with Levitt's Normandy story, overlaying lo-fi beats. Reddit's r/politics pinned a mega-thread amassing 40,000 comments in 12 hours, half praising Levitt's composure, half debating whether Hollywood should ever scold public servants. Even the Daily Mail momentarily shelved royal family clickbait to run the headline, "De Niro humbled. Freeman moved to tears by Gen Z press chief." Senior staff gathered for 7 a.m. comms huddle. Chief of staff grinned. Who knew humility would trend on TikTok? Policy advisors urged leveraging the momentum for youth civic engagement bills. Skeptics warned against over-celebration. In this town, today's viral hero is tomorrow's meme. Levitt asked to skip celebratory pastries. She had briefing prep on inflation numbers. Perspective preserved. Freeman, at an AFI symposium, admitted, "Last night I was the student." He announced a forthcoming docu-short, Seasoned Voices Listening to New Ones. De Niro, filming in Atlanta, gathered crew between takes. "Let's start a scholarship for public service interns who can't afford DC rents." Within a week, $1.2 million pledges rolled in. Communication scholars at Stanford labeled the moment reciprocal vulnerability, noting Levitt's personal disclosure triggered symmetrical openness in her critics. Harvard's Kennedy School scheduled a spring colloquium titled Age, Authority, and Authenticity. A Pew Flash poll showed 63% of respondents, across parties, believed younger voices deserve greater airtime in national discourse post-event, up from 48% a month prior. Cable news bookings for sub-30 policy analysts spiked 28% within 2 weeks. CNN framed the exchange as a masterclass in poised dissent. Fox News lauded Levitt for standing tall against Hollywood's elitist sermon. MSNBC spotlighted Freeman and De Niro's public growth, heralding icons who practice the courage to pivot. Influencer Podcast. Call Your Granddad dedicated an episode to intergenerational empathy, boosting downloads by 400%. Levitt received 7,000 letters within the month. Veterans, high school debaters, retired teachers. She replied to every veteran personally, handwriting notes during Amtrak rides to New York for UN General Assembly prep. One envelope contained a decade-old Polaroid of her grandfather's platoon from a fellow ranger who recognized him in the Victory Day photo. Evidence of battlefield brotherhood she'd only heard about in bedtime stories. Within Congress, a bipartisan youth service bill previously stalled gained 14 new co-sponsors, citing a renewed national conversation. Critics argued correlation isn't causation, but the bill's press release directly referenced the Kennedy Center moment. Working title: First Seats at the Table. Episodes to feature a 26-year-old tribal councilwoman in Arizona, a 28-year-old conservative city treasurer in Oklahoma, and Levitt in D.C. cameras will follow cross-ideological dialogues moderated by Freeman. Netflix, Hulu, and HBO Max entered a bidding war before a single minute was shot. Comedian hosts weighed in. One joked, "Gen Z just taught 2 octogenarians the meaning of Snapchat and humility." The Onion published, "Nation furious that civil discourse generates fewer clicks than normal outrage." The pushback proved the rule. Even a moment of connection can't escape America's meme economy, but it can inspire fresh punchlines. British outlets compared it to 2019's Question Time episode where a 22-year-old climate activist out-argued veteran MPs. In Seoul, the youth-led newspaper Hankook Ilbo ran an editorial. "America's elder statesmen finally hearing Gen Z? Perhaps there is hope across the Pacific, too." At a Georgetown forum, Levitt reflected, "The goal isn't winning viral moments. It's converting curiosity into conversations at dinner tables that never trend." Freeman, joining via hologram tech demo, chuckled. "I'll drink to that. Her generation's water bottle, of course. If one poised reply can thaw 80 years of lived distance, imagine what thousands of similar moments might heal." So here's our challenge to you, viewer. At the next family reunion or comment thread, ask a sincere question and stay long enough to hear the whole answer. Then tell us how it went in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe for deep dive breakdowns where dialogue, not drama, steals the spotlight.